Let's get more on this now from Michael Bossacu. He is a former spokesperson for the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe and is a senior fellow at the Atlantic Council. He joins me now from Odessa in Ukraine. Always appreciate you joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So, Ukraine's foreign minister, Dmytro Kuleba, tendered his resignation Wednesday ahead of this cabinet reshuffle, just as a new wave of deadly Russian missiles struck the country overnight. What is going on behind the scenes politically, with President Zelensky explaining this as giving the war effort new energy?
Yeah, it's a very good question. Zelensky team is spinning this as a reset of the government, although a lot of analysts, including myself, view this more as a move to consolidate power within the office of the president, specifically the chief of staff, Andriy Yermak. I think, Rosemary, they've really overstepped this time. And as one former deputy prime minister put it, the government is careening towards a severe governance crisis because Dmytro Kuleba, I mean, this is a diplomat's diplomat, one of the most recognizable faces of the Ukrainian government. I can tell you there was a lot of dismay here on the European continent overnight in Brussels and Berlin, London, United States over his departure. And, you know, to give you an example of his kind of visionary and intelligence, he was on our podcast, Global Impact, and he told Melissa Ritchie and myself that the war is coming. This was a few months before the war. He said the war is coming. And secondly, he said that the world should stop looking at Ukraine through the prism of Russia. In other words, too much is calculated on Russia's reaction in terms of what's going to happen to Ukraine. But I don't see as strong as replacement coming. And I think one of the reasons, Rosemary, kind of to wrap up here, is he's leaving is that I think he got sick and tired because the office of the president has basically taken over communications for the government. And earlier on in the war, they cut the budget severely of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So a lot of embassies have very few resources. Probably he couldn't take much more anymore.
The timing is a concern, isn't it? I mean, you have to ask, why is a cabinet reshuffle planned in the midst of deadly Russian strikes on parts of the country when citizens of Ukraine are being killed and others are also under threat of losing their lives? Just many questions being asked here.
Yeah, in fact, in that interview with Christian Amanpour that you mentioned, he actually, Mr. Kuleba actually said that part of his family is from Poltava, so it really struck him personally. And, you know, why would you change him and so many other respected faces, including Olga Stefanishyna, another deputy prime minister, right at the time when you're begging for more resources from the West, especially those the okay for those long-range Western supplied missiles to strike deep inside Russia? It just doesn't make sense. And then one more thing, Rosemary, into this complicated mix, admittedly, is also forced out was the head of the Ukrainian state-owned Ukrenergo, the transmission generating company, a chap by the name of Volodymyr Kudrytsky, was forced out against the wishes of Western allies, including reportedly the White House. So I don't know, it just seems a lot of shooting yourself in the foot at the worst possible time.
Yeah, and as you touched on, I mean, the question has to be asked, how much does this cabinet reshuffle hinder and undermine President Zelensky's efforts to acquire more weapons from the West to defend his country, his people, particularly when these Western nations see this political drama playing out? I mean, they pretty much know what's going on here, I would assume.
You know, my gut feeling on this is that we're at a pivot point in terms of this current government. As you know, Zelensky came in with a wave of popularity. He had a majority in parliament, but right now he's even having problems summoning the votes to get some of these resignations, so-called resignations, accepted. So there's going to be some work for him to do in the parliament in terms of getting those votes together. But I think you're seeing also, as the clock ticks down to the November elections, a race to kind of future-proof assistance to Ukraine. And again, why would you remove someone like Mr. Kuleba, Olga Stefanishyna, the other ones who had such respect in Western capitals, and replace them with people who are virtually unknown? So, but again, and the Western capitals are also telling Ukraine, look, the war is not a pass for you to neglect your fight against corruption. And the moves that happen at Ukrenergo, which has done really, really well in the past few months. In fact, it's the reason I have power right now and I'm able to speak to you, is because they've done such a good job protecting power stations. A lot of this just doesn't make sense, sorry to say.
Yeah, so many questions. Looking for some answers on this. Michael Bossack, many thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.